Hello, I'm Stevie and welcome to episode 2.
Hello, I'm Sarahlin.
I'm 17 years old
I'm 18 years old.
and we've both got autism. Welcome to episode 2 of Let's Talk Autism. We are here today to talk about special needs schools. The reason why we're talking about autism is that we're trying to get people talking about autism, trying to get people more aware and not to be worried about that autism and to help people with coping with that autism.
Some kids with autism go to special needs school.
And that is the reason why we are talking about special needs schools on episode 2. So Sarahlin, we went to the same mainstream school
Yep, we did.
and the same special needs school.
Yep.
So basically you're following me.
No, I just couldn't get rid of ya.
What do you think the difference is between a special needs secondary school and a mainstream primary school?
Well, when I went to mainstream secondary school, I got bullied and I was very different compared to the other children. I think me coming to a special needs school, I can be myself, if that makes sense. Because when I come here, I can see that I'm not different. There's other people who I can talk to who have autism and people who understand me.
They do. When I was in a primary school, in mainstream school, it was a lot. They didn't really know what to do with me because we were like the first 2 special needs students there, and that most of them were all like high functioning kids, and I wasn't really. So I remember the teacher went to my mum and dad said, "Well, see that they don't know what to do with me," so they put me into, I think, the younger classes, and that was hard. And also when I went into my class, while they were all doing one sort of work, they were all doing these booklets and they were all asking each other, "Oh, what page do you want and what page do you want?" And I couldn't even say that because I didn't even have the same work. I had babyish work in a way, and that made me sad. But when I went into Pendragon, I really didn't know what to expect. But when I went into Pendragon, it was different because we were all on the same page. And I know something simple like saying, "Oh, I've got the same page, I've got the same page." I know it's something simple what other people might look. But when I found out that, that someone else next to me has the same page, I'm on the same page, and I feel like I'm the same level as him, that's never happened to me before. And I thought that made me happy.
In my mainstream school, I felt very, let's say, unique. But at the same time, there's times where I wished I would say normal. Sometimes I would go to the bathroom in mainstream school and look in the mirror and say, "What's wrong with you?" And sometimes I would cry. But now that I go to a special needs school, it's fantastic. The teachers understand me more. And when I'm having a down day, there's someone to talk to. I don't feel alone, as I should say, how I was in mainstream school.
Also, you said earlier that you struggled with bullies. I also struggled with bullies. Well, I think with many kids who go to a special needs school, with many kids with special needs who go to a mainstream school, you'll find that they do get bullied quite a lot. Like the interview we had last week, who said that he was bullied in mainstream school when he went to mainstream school. With many kids, they get bullied. Do you think that the staff could do something better in mainstream schools?
Yeah, because in mainstream school, I told the teachers, I told the helpers, and sometimes they would say something like, "Don't worry about it," or sometimes they would just write a letter. But I felt like that mainstream school didn't do much.
It's worse that the fact that not only do the students don't understand, and the students don't understand that you've got special needs, you're different, but also the staff don't understand that you've got special needs, you're different in that way. Hello, we're here with Dr. Viv.
Hello.
So Dr. Viv, as a child psychologist and working in a special needs school, have you ever worked in a mainstream school?
Yes, briefly. I taught in a mainstream school for a couple of years.
Could you tell us in your opinion, what's the difference between a special needs school and a mainstream school?
I think a special needs school, you can really work on the things that make a difference with children and young people. You can concentrate on the things that young people need to learn. Sometimes in mainstream schools you have to follow broad and balanced curriculum, and that usually leads to examinations. I quite like the idea of a narrow and personalised curriculum that meets the individual needs of the young people in the school.
When someone says autism, can you tell us what do you think of the word?
What do I think of the word autism? I think it means so many different things to different people because no two people are the same. So what I understand by autism is that people and young people have difficulties understanding the perspectives of others. I think that's how I would describe autism.
Dr. Viv, what would you say to people who don't know the meaning of autism or people who try to understand it but still don't get it? What would you say?
I would say be very open-minded and don't worry about not fully understanding what autism is, because it's quite a difficult concept. But just be open-minded and try and treat the person as you would treat any other person.
But autism is such a knowledgeable thing. Everyone knows about autism now. I think not anyone on this planet knows about autism. I think most people know is either got someone who's affected by autism or they've met someone in their life who's got affected by autism. It's not like people don't know about autism. It's there, and people know about special needs, not just autism, but dyslexic, Asperger's, and all them special needs. They are knowledgeable, and lots of people know about them. So, surely now you know what special needs is. They're not mad. They're not messed up in the head. You know that they're there, but there's no point looking at them because you know that they've got special needs. So surely they don't have to look. They don't need to look. So you don't really have to take the time to tell them what autism and what autism not, because it's a world now where, like 50 years ago, autism was very new, and in fact, I don't think people even know what autism was. But now most people know what special needs is.
I'm not sure, Stevie, whether you're right. Autism is a very common condition. You're right. 1 in 100 people have autism. But when you say that people know about autism, they may have heard about it, but they don't really know much about autism. And I think that's why you may get difficult looks and you may get the impression that they've never heard of people with special needs. I think there's a lot to be done to help them understand.
So, have you got any advice for kids who are like younger than us, who might have autism, who might be finding it difficult to accept it?
Yes, I have. I think it would be good for people to ask the right questions, like you've been asking. Ask questions from the heart, the ones that you really want to find the answers to, and speak to people that you trust about autism. So my advice to young people with autism is to find out a little bit more about autism, so that will give you an insight in how to cope with autism.
Well, what would you say, Dr. Viv, if someone in your school came up to you and was crying and said they don't know what to do because they feel a bit different from the outside world because they have mild autism?
I think I'd throw my arms around them and hug them. I'm not sure that we all, from time to time, whether you've got autism or not, sometimes you do feel that life can be a bit of a challenge and a bit of a struggle. So I think, use the people that are around you to support you. And don't be fearful. Don't be frightened to get what you want in life.
Dr. Viv, what would you say to children who think that they can get rid of their autism?
I don't think you'll ever get rid of your autism. I think you're a young person with autism and you'll grow up into an older person with autism. But your understanding of life and your understanding about your own autism will improve. So okay, you've got something that's going to be with you for the rest of your lives, but that shouldn't really make your lives any less worthwhile than anyone else's lives.
Drumbeat is a great school. Do you think that Drumbeat is a bit of a bubble a little bit? Like, for instance, when I was in Pendragon, I felt like it was a bit of a bubble from the outside world. Even though that had its advantages, and it was good because many children who was our age and still our age will take the mickey out of us and call us some horrible names. Do you think Drumbeat is a bit of a bubble, if you get what I mean?
Yes, I do. I do get what you mean, and I understand the question. I think it is a bit of a bubble, but I think sometimes you've got to have a bit of a bubble, a bit of protection, a bit of security, in order to learn about the outside world and to learn to cope in the real world. So it might be a bubble. It might be we might be being a bit overprotective to you, but I think that gives you time to prepare for life in the real world.
Do you think that children in mainstream schools, like secondary schools and that, do you think they should learn a little bit more about children with autism, children with special needs in general, not just autism, so they don't make the same mistake? For instance, when students, I'm just stereotyping a little bit, when I think children with mainstream schools hear about autism, they think a bit crazy, a bit loud, can't really read, can't really write. And I think most kids with mainstream school would probably think that unless they have autism directly affecting them, like their brothers or their sisters or their cousins, or they just know autism. Do you think that children who go to a mainstream school, do you think they should learn a little bit more about autism before?
Yes, I think they should, and that is a bit of a problem, isn't it? Because if young people like yourselves are segregated from mainstream schools and come to a special school and, if you like, live and work and learn in a bubble, that may not be in the best interests of people in mainstream or for you. So I think maybe a compromise needs to be reached where some youngsters with special needs do spend some of their time in a mainstream school.
I remember when I was younger, and I did that a little bit in depth with Treen to sort of get me used to it, because there was talk about me going to a mainstream school. And I remember there was something really sad when I was in a mainstream school. I was going in for lunch, and there was a cage, not a cage, but a barrier blocking us from one part of the playground, two playground basically, and that was blocking us. And the mainstream kids used to throw food at the other special needs kids. So in a way, that sounds like a good idea, but we need to be together with mainstream schools a little bit more. But the safety of like special needs kids, and it's different. It's a lot different to mainstream schools. For instance, in our schools, we have a lot of play stuff. In mainstream schools, they don't have any play stuff. It's just flat bound. That question made no sense whatsoever, did it?
It did. I go into mainstream schools every week, and I do see really good examples of young people, children with special needs being included. So your experiences are very real, and they were difficult experiences. But I think things have moved on a little bit, and I see some really good examples of how children with special needs are included purposefully and honestly.
Is there any last things you want to say, Dr. Viv?
No, I think you should have the last word.
Thank you very much for talking to us about your school, about special needs and about having special needs schools.
And thank you for having us.
Technically, we had him.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So, how do you think that went, Sarah?
That went really well.
It's very interesting to talk to someone about special needs school who's worked with special needs children for a very long time. It was a good opportunity.
Yeah, especially someone with experience, you know. I think when Dr. Viv said about people that he wanted to educate people who don't know much about autism, sometimes in life, sometimes people ain't always going to accept people with autism. Sometimes they will accept you, sometimes they won't. But sometimes I find it unfair.
Yeah.
Do you, Stevie?
I think what it is the first judgment, and the minute you hear autism, you start thinking, and unfortunately nothing can stop you from thinking. So you start thinking that this kid's got autism. Oh, he's an idiot. He doesn't know anything. He's loud. He's a bit dangerous. He's a bit... But he's all them things. He goes to a special needs school. He must not be as good as me. But in real life, there was kids in the school, and sometimes I hope me, who are 10 times smarter than any mainstream school, but smart in their own way.
I think sometimes going to a special needs school sometimes can help me to get further than it was in a mainstream school. Because even though I had some struggles in mainstream school, but coming here to a special needs school has helped me and pushed me further.
I think we have a duty and a job to change people with autism, change that awareness. Not just people with autism, but people without autism. Because we, as children who've got autism, we're growing up with autism. And many kids, 15 years ago, people didn't even know what autism was and didn't really know what special needs was. If you was being like that as a kid, you was either crazy or just lazy. And that's not fair. So it's changed to one day not having special needs schools to now having special needs schools. Alright, so that's all we got time for. I just want to say thank you to Dr. Viv, Roland, Katie, Catherine, and Tim for their great help. Next week we're going to interview Sarahlin Morgan,
who diagnoses kids with autism.
Thank you, goodbye, and I can't wait for next week.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was produced at Drumbeat School and ASD Service.
This project was produced by Roland Bullingham,
Tim Godwin,
Catherine Stevenson,
and Katie Kennell.
The song in this episode was Hey by Juanitos. For more information on this podcast
and all of the other services available in Drumbeat School,
please visit our website drumbeatasd.org.
This is a Drumbeat Media production.